I'm Chloe.
And I'm Zoe, and this is
Global Glimpses.
We're two best friends who love to chat about relationships, society, spirituality, wellness, and all topics of that manner. We believe that every conversation is a chance to learn, grow, and empower one another. So whether you're looking for advice, inspiration, or simply a great chat, this is a place to be.
Just two girls, infinite conversations. We're here to explore the wonderful, messy, and sometimes downright crazy journey called life. So grab your favorite drink, cozy up, and join us on this wild and wonderful ride. And don't forget to subscribe now so that you're always up to date.
In today's episode, we'll talk about the patriarchy, feminism, and how they impact our modern society. So our first question is, what is patriarchy?
The patriarchy is a society or a government structure where the men hold the majority of the power. And what is feminism?
So feminism is the belief that women should be allowed the same rights, power, and opportunities as their male counterparts.
So, speaking more in modern day times, how does patriarchy actually manifest itself in our society today?
Yeah, so patriarchy manifests itself in many different ways. One, for example, is the pay gap between men and women. Technically speaking, you can say there isn't a pay gap, but the pay gap is the fact that men are given more position in power. They're more likely to become managers or higher level. They're more likely to hold the higher positions. Therefore, they're more likely to earn higher amounts.
Mm-hmm.
Another way the patriarchy manifests in the society is the way that children get brought up. The fact that men and women get brought up in very different ways, meaning that women are brought up more in a way of servitude towards men, getting married, having kids, and being a housewife that takes care of the family life, whereas men get given more of an opportunity to grow when it comes to career, and that's
on the same side of that as men getting brought up in a different way to women. I feel like men also have a lot of responsibility and not also given the same lenience as women sometimes are in terms of like their emotional strength. Like women will be told like it's more okay to express their feelings and to cry and to express that about themselves, whereas men aren't given the same opportunity to express themselves as much, which directly correlates to why men tend to struggle more with their mental health and have so much of a higher suicide rate, because we are brought up differently. Women are allowed to express themselves and how they feel, but to young boys they're told if you can't cry because you're a boy, like be a man, grow up, like.
Also, another way that patriarchy manifests in society is because of the fact that obviously women are said to be much more of the nurturer and much more of the ones that take care of the children. They're the ones that get given children in court, even when they're not the most suitable parent for the child to be around.
Another way that the patriarchy manifests itself in society is seen, I think, a lot with SA and harassment, street harassment, just in general, and catcalling. It is something that many women have to deal with on almost a daily basis because of the culture and the environment that the patriarchy has created. A lot of men find it acceptable to catcall or to assert dominance over women when they don't have to, or to behave in ways that make women feel uncomfortable in the street because they feel like they hold a certain power that they feel they can assert over women. And it's very common, and statistically it happens to a lot of women, which is a crazy number to think about, but it just means that's something that's affecting women every single day, and it's a product, to my understanding, of the patriarchy.
Yeah, and it's not even just on the streets. Obviously now in the time of social media, women get even more disgusting attention, because I feel like with social media there is such a big shield, that people think that just because it's social media they can say whatever they want, and even when it comes to friends, I feel like a lot of men don't do it knowingly. They try to compliment somebody or they try to be nice, but they do it in a way that's creepy and it's not very nice, and women feel like they have to be nice because they don't want to offend the other person. They don't want to make them feel uncomfortable, even though that the man is making the woman feel uncomfortable in the first place. And it's the same with street calling. Women tend to be very nice and apologetic towards the man because they're scared of how the man's going to feel when they're rejected and what they could do and how much more harm they could bring towards the woman if they do speak up and if they do say something about it.
I think in the last month or two we've seen two very big cases of that in America, where a woman was hit with a brick because she rejected a man in the street, and there was actually men around her, and she filmed them and she said, how are you allowing this man to hit me after rejecting him and nobody's saying anything about it? And in the UK there was a 15-year-old girl that was stabbed after an incident where her friend had rejected a boy, and he then went to stab her and her friend stepped in the way. So it's a really, really scary reality that women have to face. And, I've even spoken to my boyfriend and I told him, listen, if somebody asks me in the street for my number and I feel threatened, I will give it to them, not because I want to give it to them, but because it's a scary place. Like, yes, you may not do something like that and you may be sane, but it's a real reality that women have to face, that not all men are understanding to that and have the capacity to be able to take that rejection. Some men take it really, really hard. And throughout my experience personally, and a lot of experiences of the women around me, actually the majority of the women around me have experienced this kind of harassment and felt uncomfortable on the street, or uncomfortable where they've been approached by men in maybe an aggressive way, or the man hasn't taken no for an answer, and it's a really, really real thing. And I think as men, sometimes they don't realize how threatening it can be, because on initial look, on an initial sight, you can't tell who the normal men and who the strange weirdos are. Like, if someone approaches you, you don't know if they are going to be that person that's going to hit you with a brick or take your rejection really, really hard. So it's almost like living in constant fear and always looking over your shoulder. I think there was another time that we were speaking, Zoe, and we were talking about all of the things that we do when we're walking outside late at night to prepare ourselves for something bad happening, because it's a real reality. Women have these steps in their mind where they hold their keys in their knuckles and they have their friends on the phone and they, do all of these things. And I think a lot of men don't realize that women are living in this constant fear, and it's not almost. Look at me trying to be polite about this. Yeah. It's not okay.
Yeah, no, it's not okay. And it's I think it's obviously understandable that men don't see it, because obviously they don't deal with it every day. They're privileged enough to be able to think, oh, I want to go for a run, even if it's middle of the night, and they can still go. And obviously they can still be subject. They do still have to think about, I don't know, potentially being stabbed or something, but if there's such a small amount of that happening compared to the amount of women that just get followed home and threatened and made to feel very uncomfortable. And it's something very scary, and it's a reality that every single woman has to deal with. So if you're walking behind a woman on the street, just think the best thing for me to do is just to cross the street, just so she feels safer, even especially if I'm not a predator. If I know I'm not a predator as a man, why would I want her to feel this way? She's going to feel this way regardless, because she has to feel this way. So I might as well step out the way and make sure that she feels so much more comfortable, because I've had situations where a man is just walking home the same way that I'm walking home, but they're walking behind me and they're walking a little bit faster, they're a bit taller, so they've got a faster pace, and they catch up to me, and it's scary because you're like, I don't know, am I gonna get hit around the head? Like, what is happening? What is going on? And you try to avoid it the best you can, but there is only so much that you can do, you know. At the end of the day, like, women still have to go to work, we still have to, you know, like, pay for our bills, and some people, you know, don't have the possibility to be able to work day shifts, or some people just prefer night shifts, and it should be okay for a woman to be able to go home at night not feeling scared to turn around any corner and make sure that you're on the phone, or if I can't be on the phone, I like record a voice note acting as if I'm on the phone, because it's so scary. Once I was walking home from a club and this man was following me, and then my boyfriend at the time wasn't picking up the phone, and I just kept on calling and he wasn't picking up, and I just acted as if I was on the phone, and he was there because it was so scary. And the man he hasn't even seen my face, and he was just walking behind me being like, babe, stop, I'm trying to talk to you. And I was just acting as if I didn't hear him, because it was 3 a.m. I was coming back from a club. I don't know what state he was in. It's 3 a.m. for him as well. Like, I don't know if he's drunk, if he's drugged, or like what kind of situation. And he ended up stopping me. I turned around, I was like I'm on the phone to my boyfriend, and he was like, sorry. But the fact that women have to do that, and women have to say, oh, I have a boyfriend, or that sometimes doesn't even work, but saying that's the only way to kind of get man to walk away it's a real issue.
Yeah. It's almost like the reason why we feel like it's really important to discuss these topics, because for so many years as women, I think especially when you're younger, they tell you don't dress a certain way, don't leave the house at a certain time, don't, you know, speak to certain people, don't do certain things to protect yourself. And even after all this list of things, how we dress and how we speak and like how we present ourselves and all of those things that we can do to prevent these things, they still happen to so many women. And it's almost as if we need to stop discussing this with women and start having this as an open conversation with men, and letting them know that a lot of women are scared. A lot of women are scared to go outside at night. And if you are not part of the problem, then you should be part of the solution. And if you are not part of the problem, then you should be willing to listen to this kind of conversation and listen to women's experiences. Because I feel a lot of the time, like, women are now opening up. For example, the Me Too movement, they're now opening up about experiences that they've had. And even then, they're still not believed about their experience when it's a global thing. Like, I'm so sorry, but this is not a small percentage of women that we're speaking about. It's every woman that I've encountered. I don't know if other women would maybe be able to get into the comments and speak about some of their experiences. But as for myself, it's something that I speak with my sisters and my mom and my aunties and my friends, and they all have a similar experience with being put in these situations where they feel vulnerable, even if they try their hardest not to be in that situation. And I think it's time for a real conversation about this, because if we do not change this, it's going to be our children that are going to grow up in this environment, and I'm scared for that.
Yeah. And also realizing that just because I feel like this is a very big, I think this is the biggest issue, is that so many men think that because they're not doing anything towards the woman, that's enough, which that isn't enough. Because for so many of these men that are super misogynistic, they won't listen to women speaking out about it. It has to come from a man. It has to come from a man, because they only view it as respectful, or they only view it as something that needs to be talked about if it comes from another man, which is why it's so important for other men, like as Chloe said about the girl being hit around the head in a brick, for other men to be able, like, no, this isn't okay, and realize that if your friends are doing something like this, they are not a good friend. It's more than just a girlfriend. It ends up being your mother, your sister, your daughter that gets treated that way. And do you want that to happen? No, you don't. So of course, like, if I see a woman on the street being harassed or being talked to in a certain way, I always step in. But me as another woman, that's, you know, I'm not petite, but I'm only like 5'6". It's not like I'm a big woman. Compared to a man that's so much taller than me and has so much more mass, I can't really do much, you know? Whereas another man that could step in could make the situation so much better and could save so many women from hardship, which is why it's so important for men to realize, as much as they might not be a part of the problem, if you don't speak up, you are part of the problem, unfortunately.
It's just about making your male counterparts take accountability for their actions, because you, in this social structure at the moment, you are the ones that have the power. So you speaking up to your friends and saying, like, even when they make a joke that like reflects that they are okay with that kind of behavior, you need to be the person to step in, because that when you don't say something when they make those kinds of jokes, then they think that's okay, and then they take that mentality where you think it's a joke, they take it like, yeah, okay, I'm good to think like that, and then they go and do that to other people. And if you look at our previous episode on the masculine and the feminine energy, we speak about how the masculine is so much more of that strength and that voice, and like, you are to be listened to. Your voice is powerful, so use it, you know. If you
also, I feel like for a lot of men, what they don't realize, because obviously they don't deal with this on a day-to-day basis, they think that just because in the legislation it says that women and men are equal and they get paid equally or whatever, that patriarchy doesn't exist, and that misogyny doesn't exist, and that, you know, feminists are stupid and all they want is power over men, which that's not what feminism is about. As we said, feminism is about like women being allowed the same amount of opportunity as men do. It's not about going above, because we know, I think Barbie, I'm not sure if you've watched the movie Barbie, please comment down below, but it really well represents how it is in today's society, in a patriarchy, and how a matriarchy wouldn't be good either. It's not good when either of the parties is oppressed. It's important for the realization that both of the parties are so important. We cannot have a functioning society with just one or with just the other. Both counterparts are so important. And, you know, us having this conversation is not bashing on men. It's not us saying, oh, men are like this, men are like that. But it's about trying to have a real conversation about the reality that women have to deal with, and also that men have to deal with, because patriarchy isn't just bad for women, as much as I feel like obviously women take the hardest hit of the patriarchy, men have to deal with it as well. Just the way that Chloe said about not being able to show your emotions, and like sometimes like losing your kids in court. And there's just so many different examples of that shows how harmful a patriarchy is.
Like, people have had the wrong idea of what the feminist movement is about. It is about equality, and it is about seeing where women and men are struggling in society and being able to bridge the gap. For example, the suicide rates on men to women are huge.
Yeah, I think it's 75% men. It's like 1 in 4 is a woman, and 3/4 is men.
Which is insane. We need to start to work on those things, because the patriarchy doesn't benefit anybody. It doesn't. It really doesn't. Like, men are feeling the pressure of having to, you know, take on all of these responsibilities and not be able to be human and feel emotions, and just having to be, when they struggle, people are just like, oh, be a man, be strong. There needs to be a change this is not good enough. I think that's one of the things about feminism that have not been discussed enough, that we are fighting for both men's rights and women's rights.
Yeah.
We want equality. We don't want it to be men versus women. That's not what we want. We want us to work together to make this society the best for, you know, the future generations coming.
And obviously when we're saying that feminism is about both equality of women and men, we do want to recognize that there is radical feminists who are against that, and they don't want that. They think that the only way for the society to move on is for it to be matriarchy and for it to be about women in power. But that's why feminism gets such a bad rep, because people focus on these radical movements that do not reflect the feminist movement correctly at all, and it's such a small amount that gets spoken about the most, and it's really damaging to what feminism really stands for, because feminism stands for equality for everybody. And it includes people of color, it includes LGBTQ plus people, it includes disabled people, it includes all types of people, it includes working people, everybody, you know. Of course it didn't used to be this way. The feminist movement, I feel like only in the recent years has become so inclusive, because it used to be very elitist, you know. It used to be just for white rich women, white rich straight women, let's say, and you know, like black women, people of color, disabled people weren't included in that conversation, and they were still shunted to the side, which is in no way, shape or form right. But of course we have to acknowledge the history of feminism, and that it didn't used to always be the way it is now.
But in terms of what you were saying about the feminist movement, I think it might be beneficial for us to have a look at how it's developed and how it started. I think the first wave of feminism was in 1948, in the early 20th century, and women were essentially fighting for their legal rights, and they were fighting so that they could have the right to work and earn property. I've had the pleasure of working with some elderly ladies, and they used to tell me a lot about how things were so different, and they are still alive to this day, which is crazy. And they used to tell, when I got married, I had to quit my job because legally you weren't allowed to have a job and be married. And some of the women were not allowed to own property, even if they're the ones that bought it. It could only be put in their husband's name. And if you come to think of it, people that say that all women have the same legal rights now as men do, they're ignoring how recently in history that women have received those rights, and the general social attitudes on a lot of things haven't yet changed to be able to reflect those new laws and those new rights. The second wave of feminism, which was from the 1960s to the 1980s, was reducing inequalities in work, in reproductive rights, and just general attitudes towards women.
Yeah, so giving women rights for abortion.
At the end of the day, it might seem like these are small things, but to women, these are their lives, you know, and being forced to have children when you aren't ready, or, you know, even when your body can't take that on, it's a big thing, and it's a right that you should be able to choose what happens to your own body. And like a lot of men don't understand this because they will never be in that predicament where they have to make those choices, but we should be allowed to make the choices on what happens to our body. So it's a really important thing.
Yeah. And of course you're allowed to have your own opinion about it. You know, that's the whole point of abortion rights, is that you have a choice. You know, if you are a person that stands against it, if you think it's something that you could never do, then that's okay. You don't have to do it. Exactly. But also you shouldn't take away that right from another person, because you don't know their experience, you don't know their life, you don't know what they've gone through to be at the point in life that they are, and they should be allowed to do what they want with their reproductive rights, the same way that a man wouldn't want to have a vasectomy without them giving the consent to do that. The same way women don't want to carry a whole baby. A baby is such a big responsibility.
It's not only a big responsibility, it is such a health risk for some women. Like some women, a lot of women die in childbirth. But specifically a lot of black women die in childbirth because of the medical system, and a lot of black women are not taken seriously medically, and they die in childbirth. And that is a huge risk to take, and nobody should be forced to put their own life at risk regardless. If you personally are and stand against abortion, then make that choice for yourself. You do not have to put your opinion and your beliefs onto somebody else's body. And if it is that you feel like you have this, feeling like you want to help children and you love children, go and adopt children and help the children that are already out there. There's a lot of people fighting for women to have babies just to put them in foster care and traumatize those children.
And the system, the whole adoption system as well is so broken. It's so broken. The people that I've talked to or that I've heard talk about that, are orphans and that have grew up in care, they say it's awful and it's traumatizing and it's a lot. And, there is already so many babies that have to go through that, and, that have to... Some kids literally grew up the whole lives in foster care without ever being adopted until they're 18. And it's a lot. It's so much trauma. It's so much stuff that then they have to deal with as adults. And it's just not fair, It's not fair to put even more kids at the risk of having to do that, and of risk of having like a broken life and having a really hard start. Because, the kids in foster care and the kids in that get adopted, they might be really lucky and be given like a really good home, but they might be given a really bad home where the family only wants to adopt that child or only wants to foster that child because they get money for it, and just because, and they are just end up being puppets. Or the amount of stories I've heard, there was a real story about this white couple that would adopt black kids, and then they would use them for different things, for like sexual favors, and it was just disgusting, and for just to use them to make money, and then they ended up killing those children. And the fact that that's just allowed, and that's the problem that we have to deal with first. This is the problem. Abortion, it's literally not even on the list of priority.
Instead of fighting abortion rights, fight for a system that takes care of the children. Because we're already living in a system right now that is not beneficial towards children, and we haven't sorted that issue out. So you're just fighting someone that isn't even ready for it, mentally, financially, whatever reason, forcing them to bring the children into an environment that is also not ready for them. There is so much abuse that lives in the foster system. If you were to care about the children, first start with that. Start with that before you try and push your opinions onto a woman's body that you probably don't even know. Just come on. let's call a spade and be real for BFFR.
Yeah. But also I think in a lot of men's minds, because they're so logical, for them when they hear equality, for them that means we're the same. Like the amount of times I heard, does that mean I can hit you then? Not that you can hit a man anyway, so I don't know what you're talking about. But it's just this, it's equality. It's more, I think equality, that word, I think it's harder because it's more about equity rather than equality. Because equality means that everyone gets put on the same level, which doesn't really work for a lot of people, because a lot of people, you know, come from poorer homes, you know, so already somebody that has more money will be put on such a higher level. It's about being able to bring up the other oppressed groups to the same level of that non-oppressed group, so that everyone can be able to live equally. And equally, that doesn't mean that, you know, at the end of the day, like as we said in our last podcast, women and men are so different, and the masculine and the feminine is so different. You know, men, of course, they are so much more stronger. They are gonna be the ones that are more of the protectors. That is the, you know, that's one of their roles in the society. And it doesn't mean that women have to be on the same level. It's about realizing we both have really, really important, great qualities. And when they all come together, as Chloe said, they make something so beautiful. But it's not about them bringing both the masculine qualities, because that's not needed. There is no need for two pluses. There is a plus and a minus, and that's what makes them click together. So as you guys can see from all the points that we made, feminism is so important in today's society. In a patriarchy, is so important to carry on having these conversations, to carry on figuring out ways of dealing with these issues. And this isn't easy. It's not an easy topic. This is why it's taken so many years. And I'm sure it's gonna take many more years, because it's very difficult to get rid of all the like societal pressure and all the ideas we might have from when we were children. And that, you know, it's not just when it comes to women and men, it's when it comes to racism, casteism, everything, because obviously it all comes from your childhood. So it is a hard fight. We have a long way to go, but I'm really happy to see that these conversations are talked about more and more, especially amongst men. I think men are really coming along to the idea of feminism, and that they're realizing that it's not really as bad of a word as it's being portrayed as in the media and in you know, by the radical feminists, and that at the end of the day we're just here for their equality, and we're just here to live life in a good and loving and easy way, and that's what we're striving for. We're striving for that ease, and we're striving for all of us to be able to have the same opportunities as one another.
To finish this episode, do you mind if I read a poem quickly?
No, go for it.
Skirt steak girls, the only girl in the handful of backseat boys. I sit shotgun without calling it. The song pounding through the radio says, bitch every other word. One boy assures me I'm not like other girls. Out of habit, I thank him for the compliment. I listen to them speak of women like menus, rare, medium rare, lace skirt, trim steak. I cross my legs silently, and my voice becomes a jewel in a light Tiffany box. I am ashamed it fits. This is the part where I prove I can chill. I can hang, guys. Who says feminists are buzzkill? As we turn the corner, there's a gaggle of young women. The driver of the car I'm in leans out and spits, how much? Eyes wide as spotlights, they scurry away like shot pool balls, as I have done so many times. A whole van hoots, fist bumps and hollers. There's not enough seats for both a woman and the joke to fit comfortably in the car. In a fish tank of predators, I worry that I am too a predator by association. When I get the courage to say something, I am 2 weeks late, encouraged by Bacardi and the party. I start by assuring him that he's a good person, which is why I am telling him in the first place. I have to make this matter to him. I bring up his sister, his mother, his girlfriend. I have to make this all somehow relate back to him. It is the dilemma of being a woman who wishes to inform a misogynist politely. It is the dilemma of a woman who wishes to be heard. Let me give you this reality check with a spoonful of sugar. Let me make this easier for you to hear. than it is for us to live. Slave Life Bird, get her book. It's amazing. If my body could speak.
There was nothing more to say. That was so perfectly put.
Yeah.
So perfectly put. And it's the reality. We hope you enjoyed this episode just as much as we have.
Your support means the world to us. Remember, we're here to empower, inspire, and entertain. But we're also here to remind you that you're not alone and to create a beautiful community for you to be part of.
So keep those conversations going, keep learning, and keep growing. Don't forget to subscribe and like this video. If you want to connect with us, you can find all of our socials in the description below.
We love you all so much. Until next time, bye!